I never thought a single voice message could change everything. Have you ever opened a message from someone you trust, expecting something sweet, only to realize it's not meant for you at all? That happened to me. My daughter, Chloe, 30 years old, sent me a voice message that was clearly intended for her fiancé, Daniel, 32. At first, I thought it was a simple mistake. A small slip. But as soon as I hit play, I realized this wasn't a harmless message. It was a window into a world I wasn't supposed to see, a world where I wasn't just an observer, but the subject of whispers I would never forget. But before we continue, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell for updates. I remember the exact moment. I was sitting in my living room, a cup of tea growing cold in my hand. The evening sun painted golden stripes across the carpet, and my phone buzzed softly. It was Chloe. Normally, our chats were light-hearted, filled with updates about her day, funny little complaints about work, or her latest obsession with new recipes. But this time, the notification felt different. There was tension in the air, a heaviness I couldn't explain. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Then I pressed play. Her voice was familiar, warm, almost tender at first. But within seconds, it shifted. The words she spoke were meant to be private, intimate, and shocking. She was talking about me, about things I never imagined she would say, things that made my stomach drop. As a mother, you think you know your child. You believe that after 30 years, you've shared every joke, every secret, every piece of your heart. But this was different. There were truths in her words, criticisms, doubts, and even confessions that felt like daggers cloaked in affection. I paused the message, hands shaking slightly, and stared at the phone as if it might give me the courage to delete what I had just heard. But I couldn't. I had to know more. What Chloe had revealed could not be unheard. And yet, I also knew that confronting her immediately might destroy something fragile, our relationship, the trust we had built over decades. The next morning, I would find myself holding the guest list for her wedding in my hands. A simple piece of paper that suddenly felt heavy, filled with choices I wasn't supposed to weigh, with names I wasn't meant to read in the context of the secrets I had just discovered. But at that moment, all I could do was sit silently, replaying her words over and over, asking myself the same question: how well do you really know someone you've loved your entire life? It started with a simple notification, the kind I'd seen 100 times before. A little pop-up on my phone from Chloe. "Hi Mom, just checking in." I smiled, thinking I'd hear about her day, maybe a laugh about work or a new recipe she'd tried. But when I pressed play, the warmth I expected instantly dissolved. The voice that filled my living room wasn't the casual, cheerful tone I was used to. It was softer, quieter, almost conspiratorial, and the first words made my chest tighten. She was speaking about me. About things I never imagined she would say aloud, things I wasn't supposed to hear. Have you ever felt that moment when your entire understanding of someone flips in an instant? That's what happened to me. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I misheard. But the more I listened, the clearer it became. Chloe wasn't complaining in a harmless way. She wasn't talking about a minor misunderstanding or a funny anecdote. She was revealing doubts, judgments, and observations about me that pierced deeper than I could have anticipated. She spoke about how I had handled her childhood, my decisions, even my role in her engagement. Some words felt like daggers, others, like a mirror reflecting insecurities I had never allowed myself to face. I gripped the edge of my chair. My heart raced, but my mind was strangely sharp. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, to ask questions, anything to understand why she would say such things. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock, maybe instinct. Mothers often carry the weight of patience, the unspoken rule of letting our children speak first, even when it stings. So I stayed silent. I let the message play, every word embedding itself into my thoughts, every pause in her speech loaded with meaning I wasn't ready to unpack. I kept thinking about the morning that would come, about how ordinary it would feel if I pretended nothing had happened. And then came the moment that made the message impossible to ignore. She mentioned the wedding guest list. Not in passing, not casually. She spoke of names, choices, arrangements, decisions I had thought would be joyful and neutral, now loaded with secrets I had never imagined. The reality struck me like a sudden, cold gust of wind. The next day, I would find myself holding that list in my hands, but for now, all I could do was sit silently, the phone pressed against my palm, wondering if the daughter I thought I knew had always been hiding something. And as I finally set the phone down, I realized this wasn't just a simple accident. This voice message had opened a door I wasn't sure I wanted to walk through, but something deep inside me knew that I couldn't turn back. Morning arrived quietly, almost too quietly. Sunlight spilled across my kitchen table, warming the counter and my hands as I held my cup of coffee, but it did nothing to ease the unease that settled in my chest. Chloe was downstairs, humming softly as she moved around the kitchen, her laughter carrying faintly up the stairs. It sounded normal, ordinary, even happy. But I couldn't hear it that way. Not anymore. Her voice from the night before, soft and intimate, replayed endlessly in my mind. Every word she had said about me, every hidden thought, every whispered criticism, I couldn't unhear it. And now, I had to navigate the morning as if nothing had changed. Have you ever had a secret that felt like it had the power to crack open the world around you? That was me. Every step Chloe took, every casual comment she made, suddenly carried double meaning. I found myself watching her carefully, trying to read the spaces between her words, the pauses in her sentences. Was she aware of how I perceived her now? Did she realize that the message had made me both hurt and powerless, a mother caught between love and disbelief? My mind raced, imagining scenarios that felt both real and terrifying, the words I might say if I confronted her, the disappointment in her eyes, or the silence that might grow between us forever. Then I noticed it, on the counter, slightly sticking out from a pile of wedding notes, the guest list. A simple piece of paper, but in my hands, it suddenly felt like a map of secrets, decisions, and intentions I wasn't supposed to see. Each name on the list carried weight, each detail a tiny revelation about the choices Chloe had made without me. I felt a mixture of curiosity and dread. I could spend the morning reading it, memorizing the names, or I could act as if it wasn't there. But the pull of the unknown was too strong. I didn't know what I would do next. Should I confront her now, ask her what she meant in that message? Or should I remain silent, watching, waiting, letting the morning unfold as if nothing had happened? The tension was unbearable. Every movement, every casual word, felt like it was part of a hidden conversation I wasn't yet allowed to join. And just as I was about to decide, to speak, to step closer, to finally act, the words Chloe had said the night before echoed again. Something she mentioned in passing made my stomach twist, a single line that hinted at consequences far beyond the voice message. And in that moment, I realized that staying silent might not just be a choice. It might be the only way to survive what was coming next. What came after that morning would force me to confront secrets I hadn't imagined, and no one, including Chloe, was ready for what I had learned. Silence can be louder than words. That morning, I discovered just how true that was. I carried the weight of Chloe's voice message with me, along with the guest list clutched in my hands, like a secret I wasn't sure I wanted to hold. Every glance I gave her, every small gesture she made, suddenly felt loaded with hidden meaning. She moved through the kitchen with her usual energy, humming a tune I recognized, but I couldn't hear it as ordinary. I was hyper-aware, reading her expressions as if they were coded messages, analyzing her words for hidden intentions. How could someone I loved so deeply have thoughts about me I never suspected? Have you ever been trapped between knowing too much and acting too little? That was my reality. I wanted to confront her, to demand the truth, to hear the words come directly from her lips instead of from a recording. But there was fear, too. Fear that my questions might push her away, that her carefully constructed world, including the wedding, the planning, the life she was building, might crumble under the weight of my reaction. So I chose silence. I let her move through her day unaware that the mother she trusted had become a silent observer, aware of every nuance, every plan, every whisper she hadn't meant to share. As the day wore on, I couldn't help but notice subtle signs of tension in Chloe's own demeanor. Even in her excitement about wedding arrangements, there were moments where her voice faltered, a hesitation in her smile, a glance she quickly hid. Was this because of Daniel, or because part of her feared her mother might have overheard something? My mind raced with possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. I realized the voice message was just the beginning, an opening into secrets and truths that had been carefully kept from me. By the time I finally stepped out of the house that morning, guest list in hand, the weight of silence pressed down harder than ever. Every name on that paper represented not just a choice for a wedding, but a connection I hadn't fully understood. And with every step I took away from the house, I felt the tension of knowledge pressing against me. I hadn't spoken a single word, but my mind was alive with questions. Should I confront Chloe later, or let her life continue untainted by what I knew? Could I forgive her for the things she had said? Or would the voice message forever change the way I saw her, and myself, as her mother? What I didn't know then, and what Chloe didn't know, was that silence could be a weapon as sharp as truth. And by holding back, I was already setting the stage for consequences neither of us were ready for. The next moments would reveal how far secrets can stretch, and how one accidental message can ripple through a family in ways no one expects. By the time the wedding day approached, the voice message I had heard weeks earlier had settled into my mind like a shadow I couldn't shake. I never confronted Chloe directly about it, but the silence between us carried its own weight. Sometimes, I would catch her glance and wonder if she suspected that I knew more than I let on. Other times, I reminded myself that some truths, once revealed, could never be taken back, and perhaps some were better left unsaid. Holding that guest list in my hands that morning had given me knowledge, but it had also forced me into a position I hadn't wanted: observer, guardian, and silent judge all at once. Have you ever carried a secret so heavy it changes the way you move through the world? That was my reality. I watched Chloe make decisions about the wedding, noticing the smallest details. The way she arranged tables, how she spoke to Daniel about certain relatives, even how she laughed at things that felt like private jokes I wasn't part of. Every observation brought a mixture of pride and pain. I loved my daughter, but I realized that love sometimes comes with the burden of knowing things others never intended you to know. And that knowledge can be both powerful and dangerous. The payoff of that accidental message was complicated. On the one hand, I now understood Chloe in ways I hadn't before: her fears, her insecurities, and even her hopes for how I would perceive her in this new chapter of life. On the other hand, the words she had spoken in confidence had left scars that time alone couldn't erase. I had to balance my role as her mother with my understanding of her hidden truths, deciding when to speak and when silence was stronger than confrontation. And yet, even in the quiet, there was clarity. The morning I held the guest list, I realized that family is not just about knowing each other perfectly, it's about navigating the unknowns, the half-spoken truths, and the secrets that shape our lives. Some things aren't meant to be spoken, but they leave marks that can never be unseen. So I stayed silent, choosing love over reaction, observation over judgment. And I watched, quietly, as Chloe stepped into her wedding day, blissfully unaware that her mother carried a secret she could never imagine. And I realized, in the end, that some revelations don't require confrontation, they demand patience, understanding, and the courage to stay silent, even when every fiber of you wants to speak. Have you ever heard something you weren't meant to? And did it change the way you saw someone you loved? Because some secrets, once heard, can never be unheard. And some silences speak louder than any confession.